Welcome to the board meeting tonight. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we have the public input statement by the vice chair. Would somebody like to fill in for the vice chair tonight and read it?
You're welcome. The first public input session is a 21-minute session with each person having no longer than 3 minutes in which to make a statement, but a second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair. Each speaker will give his or her name, address, and reason for speaking. Public input is designed for district residents, but the board chair may grant non-residents the opportunity to address the board. Statements concerning subject matters that fall under the law regarding executive sessions, for example, matters involving personnel, cannot be made during public input. We as a community pledge to treat each other as we wish to be treated. We pledge to seek understanding when there may be disagreement. Regardless of outcomes or opinions, we pledge to move forward with respect. This is time for comments and questions for the board, but please be aware that questions may not be able to be answered at this meeting.
Do we have any public input tonight?
My name is Marissa Tasker. I am from Berwick, Maine. I'm actually running for the school board on June 10th. I was at the budget meeting last Thursday, and one, it just sort of made me question my life choices recently. And two, I just thought it was really sad how your board members were being personally confronted at the time. I just wanted to recognize that your gut job isn't easy. I want to recognize the sacrifices that you make getting away from your families. I know it's hours here, but it's also hours after you leave the library that you commit to this board. So I just want to recognize your service to the community. So thank you. My second part of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I just want everyone to know that. During my campaign, I have been labeled as weak. I have been labeled as not mean enough, and I should try to run again next time, because my feelings about mental health crisis that is happening to our students doesn't pertain to this year. Two of our neighbors have had suicides in their school in the last 6 weeks, not months, not years, 6 weeks to students. And that's scary. There's a post online and it says, "We have been trodden way too long with those in charge whose main focus is emotional support rather than a solid education." With emotional support in quotation marks. Emotional support is not fake, it's not make-believe, it's not a unicorn. It is real and it is serious, and our children need to have that to survive. We need to look at the whole child, not just the math scores, which are important, but the whole child is important. If you want better math scores, you need to make sure the student doesn't have anxiety for being bullied all the time. If you want better math scores, you need to make sure that they are focused on math and not whether they want to live or die. This is serious. Everyone's afraid of the word suicide, but it's serious and it's happening. There's a Walt Whitman quote, "Be curious, not judgmental." I got it from Ted Lasso, but Ted Lasso got it from Walt Whitman. And so instead of judging the teachers in our school for low math scores, we need to start asking why and what can we do to help our students and the whole student. And instead of judging me as being weak, ask me why I think our students deserve to have everything that we could give them, and why I don't want to attend another child's funeral. Thank you.
Anyone else for public input? Okay, moving on. We have minutes to do. Minutes of May 1st. Anybody have any corrections?
in the athletics recognition in the second paragraph at the end of that first line, stuff just needs to be. Okay. I think that was all. I thought.
Anybody else? Okay, motion then?
Motion, we accept the minutes. Second.
Second, Elba? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, minutes of May 8th.
Make a motion to approve them.
Second,
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. And the last one, May 8th, district budget meeting. The minutes were almost as long as the first article. Anybody have any corrections?
Make a motion that we approve minutes.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's the minutes. Next on the agenda is Costa Rica trip.
So we have a few students joining us this evening who participated in the trip with Ms. Rosanna Pass. So here we go. Take it away.
Yeah, speed up today's. We have some pictures for you. Hello, so the students and myself are here to show you, to give you some reflections on our trip last April. It was, myself, Rosanna Paz, Irene Guzman Rockwell, and Morgan Lynch, the three of us, along with 20 students. And so some of the places that we visited, I mean, we had a nice tour of our coffee plantation, went through the entire process of producing coffee of different kinds. We drove to a volcano and hiked a small mountain there, do some kayaking, all those things you see listed there. And the students may address some of those points a little bit as well. So, so one of the things the students are gonna address here is some highlights of what they had.
Some things about the Costa Rican culture is there's lots of dancing. It is very hot. All the plants and animals are really cool. We saw a few sloths and we saw a toucan at the resort, which was very nice to see. And some food there is gallo, a traditional dish of rice and beans.
Hi. I'm just reading the words. Something kind of shocking about the culture there that was not disclosed until we arrived. It's if you don't put your toilet paper in the toilet to flush it, no, was why. You would put it in a trash can. So that was something that was a little different. That we had to get used to for that week. And Pura is kind of their expression translated to pure life. They use it in all sorts of contexts. Kind of hello, goodbye, have a good day. Oh, like it's just kind of their universal way of kind of saying like, it could be worse, but you're still living and life is still good. Yeah.
I have traveled before, but this recent trip provided me with an opportunity to experience different cultures. Because when I travel with my family, the place is more Americanized and you really don't see the culture there. This is also my first time traveling in a big group, and I made friends and memories, and I'm very glad I decided to go. And this experience has confirmed that I want to travel more and possibly study abroad in college.
This trip made me leave my comfort zone because I've really only traveled with family. And traveling with friends, I got to learn like how more of my travel habits. And I like to learn, I like to be with my friends when I travel. And I thought that it scared me being more alone, but it made me feel more independent and like responsible. This trip made me learn that, so I've traveled before, but never in a group as big as this, and I really enjoyed getting to meet new people and making a lot of fun memories with them. And it made me realize that I like traveling with people and I don't wish to travel alone. But that I do wish to travel a lot more in the future. So this trip was my first experience out of the country, and I was very grateful to have the opportunity to do it in the first place, but also do it with such a large group of people who I didn't otherwise know or didn't otherwise kind of associate myself with. And it was so much fun to kind of learn more about the people from our community and kind of another culture while also learning about them.
Yes. And something just, I did not say it at the beginning, there were a total of 20 students, and 3 of us as chaperones. 8 of these students had never left the country. 2 of them had never gone on a plane, of the first time flying. And I must say that we had the best time, particularly Mr. Randall, was our pilot to Miami. And we had a special treatment in the plane. We got in first and we had a very nice special welcoming. It was very special. Yeah. So, that's it.
A few reasons other students should be able to do this trip and travel is because they get to know their classmates, you know, I definitely made new friendships. They feel more independent. I liked being away from my family and getting to learn how I am as a traveler without them. And they got to create some really fun memories. Another reason why students should go on this trip is they get to learn a new culture in a different way, and they practice speaking Spanish in real world situations instead of just in class. And it was fun to see different countries, see like how other people live and their culture. And like I said, you can practice speaking Spanish.
So we just have some quotes that students filled out on a form on our way home from the trip. And the first one was, I learned that I enjoy traveling with friends my own age than traveling with my family.
There's a lot of them. So we're just gonna. But
We'd like to read them.
yeah. But these were kind of collected from our learning activities that we did every day. It's kind of that students shared about what they learned about themselves whilst on this trip. Kind of fun way to.
Don't have all the clothes with you. So tell me the story. Yeah. So tell us more. Tell us more.
More about.
About that quote.
Oh, wow. I know I'm not representing it here today. However, I enjoy to be put together and to have all of my things where I know they are and where I know I'm going to have them. I was living out of a suitcase for a week, which I was not used to. And I quickly realized that I wouldn't be able to go backpacking. I would not be able to live out of it. And I was very happy to be able to go back home and have my closet and my drawers and where I left them and where I could easily access them.
Yeah.
Something.
What am I saying?
I don't know if there is anything.
Do your quotes. Oh, all right. My quote was that it's the top left one. I learned that I enjoy traveling with my friends, or with friends my own age rather than traveling with my family. Just because I can relate to them more, and they also like don't know as much about traveling like as my parents do because they travel a lot. So we can kind of not struggle together, but we can learn together.
So one of my quotes was that I learned that I'm not as picky as I thought I was. And that was because I learned going into the trip that we'd be getting a lot of rice and beans. And I was so nervous about that. But then I got there and the food was really good. And I felt, just my body felt so much healthier and better with eating out.
So like something that I was nervous about going on the trip was like rooming with people that I barely know, friendly with, but I don't normally associate myself with them. But when I got there, I realized that like meeting those people and like being in the same room as them, you learn how to like compromise and get like how to like work together so everything like goes nicely. And I think that was a good experience to learn for the future.
Okay, we have some pictures. You want to talk about the picture or just show them? Or maybe we'll just play them. I'll just play them a little bit. And then if anything you would like, anything further you would like to know about each, the students can, or myself can address that.
Yeah, I can talk about this one just because I have them to inside you. The one on the left is me petting a stray dog at dinner because they were everybody stray cats and dogs and they were the sweetest things because they wanted food from the restaurant that we're at. But he was just kind of sitting there chilling. The one to the right of it is a picture of two little monkeys that were up in the tree. We went to a national park. And we saw those and that's really adorable. The one on the bottom right it's hard to see. It's a sloth, but it's a mom sloth with its baby. And it's holding it, and that was right at the restaurant of our first hotel, and that was really cool.
There's a few more of the coffee plantation and the beach. And one of our, group of our students got placed in a penthouse, which we all wanted to. Everybody's in the bottom, middle bottom is, we are on the balcony of that penthouse. The chaperone should have had, but we didn't. By the time we found out, we had all opened our suitcases, taken showers and everything, else, so we didn't bother making any changes. So here's a few more. And some of the zip lining. Anything else on that? And nice highlight and shows many of us that we can be brave, you know, we can be a little afraid and try things safely and we're good. And it's very exhilarating. So I must say also that this group of students that we traveled with was one of the easiest, nicest, more fun things for the three of us adults also to travel with. Very nice people that listened and followed the rules and be on time, and everybody was on time and everything nice and smoothly there. So pura vida, I would say, if I were Costa Rican. So this is,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you share that with me when you get it?
Absolutely, thank you.
And next we have our audit.
There's two. Oh.
So really, these are job for some late night. We have a couple of letters
from the auditor, a couple of packets, and then you'll have two bound, documents. One, the first document is the, annual financial report from our fiscal 24 audit. And the second bound document is the federal, compliance report. We will have our auditor in the first meeting in June to go through these things. She will also have like some summary presentation to give you. We'd like to give you these first, so you can take a look and please bring them when you talk.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Are these posted online for the public or no? Are these posted online for the public? to-
I don't think so, are they? No.
They are not usually posted online. but that's something we'd like.
I would like, yes. Thank you.
We move on to a financial summary.
You will have received both March and April. March tends to get a little lost in the budget process for the coming year, but, we do prepare plans. I'm sure if you think you have a look, if you have any specific questions. End of the year, it's fast approaching.
Just a quick one, Denise, the career and technical education, it's over 100%. I don't recall what that increase was. Was that just something that happened?
Let me, and you're looking
Oh,
probably.
the March. It just sticks out. It caught my attention.
Oh, yes, so we get estimates from SRTC, so the Sanford Regional Technical Center, for the cost of our students attending. There are sometimes some minor adjustments to those numbers. And in this case, we budgeted $39,189, and the bill came in at $40,465.
Is that because we were like allowed to send another student or something?
Sometimes it depends on the year, and I'd have to look it up if you want that.
It's
Just $1,200, but sometimes it's not usually, it could be a student, change. But I think sometimes too, they're finalizing their budget numbers and what they're dividing amongst all the districts.
It's an estimate at first, right?
Yeah, and I think that's usually what it is.
Okay, thank you, Denise.
Any other questions for Denise? We still have enough to get us through to June, right? And June.
Yes. That's what I try to spend my time on this time of year, is making sure have we collected all of our invoices. We spend a lot of time in my office, not just leading up to the end of June, but into July, August, and September. Really looking at everything that comes through my office, and you have to look at the dates and when things were performed, not what date you got the invoice and which fiscal year it belongs in, and it's quite complex. And takes lots of effort, but that's what we kind of spend the next few months doing, prepping to our close, fiscal 25.
So the, got 64% remaining for another, if that isn't all spent by the end of the year, what happens to the rest of it? Does it go in unassigned?
So, which document, are you looking at April?
I'm looking up April.
And can you say again what?
It's just other. In the top.
Revenue.
Oh, in the revenue?
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
That's revenue, sorry.
what happens,
with that is that we collect throughout the year. Other revenue is kind of, it's not one of the big revenue sources, like, it's not the state, money and it's not the town money, but it's bank interest. It's, tuition for special education students that might attend Mary Hurd. It is sales of buses when we do bids for buses and we get a couple, a couple hundred or $1,000 for that. So it's really the collection of all these other types of revenue. And so this is the time of year where we're going through and trying to make sure we're accounting for things like that.
Okay, and so where does that go at the end of the year?
Oh, at the end of the year, right, sorry, I forgot that part. So what happens is, we've talked about fund balance before. And again, that's the accumulation since the start of the district of the excess of revenue over expenses, which means we budget for $1 million, but maybe we spend 950. So the $50 goes into the fund balance. The fund balance allows us, so any money we save or money we collect that doesn't need to go goes to the fund balance. And when you will see it, it's a year delayed because we generally, for example, in the 26 budget, we'll look at the 24 fund balance. So it kind of goes year by year. So when we're preparing 27, we'll look at where we ended at 25.
Okay.
And that way we're not guessing on something we might receive and things like that. It's been audited and it's a fixed number.
Thank you.
Just wanted to just give some more accolades to transportation. I remember September, October, we were really, really in a bad spot with transportation. And I know that the district team worked really hard to figure out all kinds of different solutions that would make transportation not come out so bad. It actually looks like phenomenal at the time of year. And with all of our students going to so many regionals and states, and I mean, that's even more transportation than we expect. It's really just a wonderful job. So it's another accolade to transportation. I'm just super happy. Great job.
Yeah, and I want to spread that a little further than just the transportation department. Leanne did a wonderful job conceiving of these athletic driving positions and finding staff to fill them. Working very closely with Karen Moore, the athletic director, and AJ Dufour, the high school principal, because they have the majority of those trips. And they kind of came together and really, like you said, did a fabulous job.
Yeah, it's a great job.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for all you do. I want to stay here for the next one. Title 28, section, whatever it is, authorization to transfer funds.
Right. So one of the things that the state allows us to do is, at the end of the fiscal year, transfer budget money within budget articles. And I can use the leach field at Lebanon Elementary as an example. So what happened when that occurred is we did not have money in facilities to cover that full cost. And what we did is we found savings throughout the budget. What this 5% rule does is if we have a budget article that is negative, we can take up to 5% from another budget article to cover it. It's almost like at your house, you have your savings account or whatever, and the fridge goes. You're able to use that money for that and not, you may budget for it or whatever. But so this 5% that we are going to speak about just allows me to say, hey, transportation had a little extra, they had some savings. So we're going to put that money toward facilities where we had some overages. That's what it does. It does not increase the bottom line. It does not increase the amount of allowed to spend. It remains the same. It's just transferring budget money between articles.
And this is just during the summer when we're not.
So it's
session.
once a year, and by making a motion, you have the wording. Yes. By making the motion and approving it, you're giving me the authority and the auditors the authority to make that change for the budget books when we get to the fiscal 25 audit.
This, I was just gonna, this is about the auditing process, right? Is that what we do it for, is to just make sure that the lines are what they are? Because I always wondered, like, why do we not see like, hey, this was over, this was under? So that's the first question. I have another question after.
Okay, so it is for auditing presentation purposes. You'll notice there is a document in there, and I don't remember what page, but it will show you the original budget, the revised budget, and where it ended up at the end of the year, over or under. And again, when you move the money, you'll have zeros in places where it was covered, and you'll have other
It's in there.
numbers. It's in the bound, financial statement, so that first, bound document.
Great, thank you. And then my second question was, when it comes to next year budgets, what numbers do you use? Do you use the ones that you're planning on, or do you use the numbers that actually turned out because of the year went the way it did?
So are you talking when we present and gather the fiscal 27 budget?
Yeah, like what?
Compared to the 26 budget, I always use it as we drafted it.
Okay.
I don't use it as we ended up using it, because I can go back and compare apples to apples if it's the same, the original to the original.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Since you don't base the new budget on the adjusted, can we see, like, just a quick, like, can you just send us what was adjusted? Or like, if you see a trend over 2 years, can you like send that out or something like that?
So there's a document in your first
It's in there.
bound document,
Okay.
and I don't remember, but it compares, it has the original budget, the revised budget, the actuals, and it will show the variance, and I think that's what you're looking for.
Yes, that's exactly.
If it's not what you need, let me know, and we can figure it out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, we need somebody to read this.
It's long.
Take it away.
Pursuant to section 14854 of Title 20-A, the superintendent of schools be authorized to transfer not more than 5% of the total appropriation for any cost center in the current fiscal year operating budget to another cost center or among other cost centers, provided that the total current fiscal year operating budget shall not be increased by such transfers.
A second. Second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, done. Thank you.
Don't go so far.
Next, we have teaching and learning, review cycle updates.
More in the way or less in the way? And more.
So I was here in the fall and talked about that this year we were undergoing a grade 6 through 8 programmatic review. So tonight we are here to talk about that process and make some recommendations. And I have one of our expert math coaches with us today. She was part of the entire process from the start. And I'll rely on her to kind of add in things that I may forget or answer some questions. So this first slide just kind of outlines the timeline and the process that we went through. We really tried to be thoughtful and intentional in this process to make sure that
we had the most up-to-date information and that we were basing decisions on best practice and what we know is best for teaching and learning. So we've started this back in September and we just wrapped up. So it was a very long and rigorous process. It started up at the top right purple section. We started with looking at data and looking at some historical data, going back as far as we could. The old MEA information, you can't really drill down. Like for teachers, we really want like what mathematical concepts are we really doing well in, but basically we got just grade level proficiencies. So that was a broad general overview, maybe back from like 2017 to today. And then we took a deeper dive with the past few years of the NWA, where those reports are a little bit more useful in terms of seeing trends and patterns and strengths and weaknesses. So our first few sessions were really spent on talking about that data and noticing what the data is telling us. And then we transitioned, we're going around the circle. So the next few sessions after that were really about what does excellence in math instruction look like? What does current research tell us about what instructional practices have the most impact on mathematical proficiency? So we had a few sessions on that. We dug into some articles from, I didn't bring my notes. From the National Council Teachers of Mathematics on high leverage practices, did some reflection protocols, unpacked those practices, and talked, I think there is some bottom of my, talked about those instructional practices in terms of our current curriculum, and does that current curriculum provide opportunities for these high leverage practices? And what is really important to think about in really making an impact and growing our students' mastery of math skills. So we went from data to best practice, and that helped inform our third part of the cycle. Was we had 5 different math curriculums present to all of us, and we created a collaborative document to help us focus on what to listen for and really our non-negotiables in a potential new curriculum or the curriculum that we were currently using. Because when you're listening to a presentation, there's so many things coming at you. So we wanted to make sure that we had a common rubric so that when we came back together, we were all noticing and wondering similar things. So after the program presentations, we came back together as a group, reflected, processed what we had heard, again, thought about the other 2 steps in this curriculum review cycle, and talked about the pros and cons of some of the programs that we had been presented. And from there were about 3 programs that the group was interested in learning more about. So what better way to learn more about a program than to go see it in action? So I coordinated site visits, and groups of teachers went out to different districts, and they were able to observe a couple math lessons. So you get to see it in action and you hear about it, but we want to know, what does that actually look like in real practice? They were able to see more than one lesson, and then they were able to have a Q&A session with that current teacher to really get the nitty gritty. Like, really, what is helpful for you in this curriculum? Are you seeing growth? What's challenging for you? So that was really beneficial for the group. I'm going to pause for 1 second. Anything I have overlooked in those steps so far? Okay. So then after the site visits, again, we came back as a group, processed those site visits in terms of those non-negotiables for us, things that we were looking for in a curriculum, and the pros and cons of what teachers noticed in those site visits. And emerged one front runner that our teachers were really interested in exploring. So we weren't quite ready to commit yet or make a recommendation. So our next step was 2 of the teachers piloted, back to step 3, when all of those programs presented, they all came with a wealth of materials, left teacher manuals, student books, access to digital lessons. So at step 3, various teachers were already exploring certain lessons and materials. But then rotate up to where it says iReady. We had 2 teachers pilot a unit or 2 to really get some real life application of how the lessons went. And then again, we came back together as a group and processed how that went and used some different protocols to evaluate pros and cons and how we wanted to move forward as a group. So that's just a quick overview of a very long process. So why iReady? I think the group really resonated with the fundamental principles of the curriculum. It really puts students at the heart of learning. So like student engagement was one of the characteristics that really shined through. Again, it's built around those high impact teaching strategies. And another slide later, we'll talk about some of those. We're using data in meaningful ways to drive instruction, and it supports teachers every step of the way. So these are some broad reasons, and then I'll drill down to what really mattered to our group. iReady Classroom Mathematics is grounded in the following effective mathematics teaching practices as defined by the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. I won't read through them all, but these were the same high leverage practices that back when we explored best practices, we had spent time unpacking, talking about our current curriculum and the opportunities to have our students engage in these practices, or sometimes just the barriers in engaging in these practices and what makes it not effective in certain implementation. So it was nice to see that this curriculum was really designed around these core practices.
Good, you're good. Good.
But for our group of teachers, the 3 things that really put iReady at the top, the first one was student engagement. The second one was differentiation, and then learning progression. And I'll kind of go through a little bit of each of those categories in more detail. But I think at the very outset of this, before we even dug into anything, when we talked about what's important for excellence in math instruction, like engagement and differentiation from day one, were kind of non-negotiables for this group, a curriculum that does both of those things. So in terms of student engagement, they were really impressed that the instructional practices in the program really focus on active student-centered learning. So not that like reductionistic view of learning where our mind is a container and we just open up the top and dump it all in and then they just magically, absorb everything. It's really an active process where students are building through connections, sharing their thinking, engaging in productive struggle. That also dovetails, well, actually that's the next slide, but they also were really impressed that the curriculum was grounded in real life application. So students were able to see, oh, wow, learning this skill is important to me in life because they just made that real world connection more so than the curriculum that they had currently been using. And the student resources and materials were highly engaging. Here's a quote from one of our teachers who explored some of the resources. Problems are much more grounded in real life applications, which I think helps students. The understanding of importance was built into the curriculum, and it also helped me to spark more conversations about real life applications. It generated interest. We all know at the middle school level, a very hard thing to do.
Okay, you're good. I'll jump in.
Okay. The second category that was they were really impressed with the program is just the differentiation, the variety of assessments that help to pinpoint student strengths and weaknesses, the individualized lessons and practice that were available in the curriculum. There are multiple touch points that provide opportunities for mastery, by allowing students to build conceptual understanding, procedural skills, and fluency. So that balance between all of those things. And again, a couple quotes from our teachers. iReady is the best option to support all students. It gives students the opportunity to work at their individual levels, helping us target both their strengths and areas for growth. And then they were really impressed with the learning progression. I know that picture is a little blurry, but there was a real clear development of skills in each unit and a logical progression of units to enhance students' foundational knowledge, which I think is something we hear over and over, just how important building that foundational knowledge is. There, this repeats, it's the same bullet that was on the last slide, but it pertains to both. And then the multi-day lesson structure ensures numerous opportunities to develop and deepen skills and concepts. So there were really those three things: that student engagement, the differentiation, the learning progression just stood out to them as really the top reasons why this curriculum rose to their top. This was a very lengthy quote from one of the teachers who was able to pilot a unit. And I'll read it because it's very long. We're excited about iReady because it's built with all students in mind. The lessons are clear, easy to follow, and help students develop strong foundational skills. One of the best things about iReady is how it puts students where they are. The MyPath online tool personalizes learning for each child, providing extra support when needed or allowing advanced students to move ahead at a faster pace. This makes it a great fit for all learners. For teachers, iReady provides a wealth of resources to help meet the needs of every student. It's a curriculum that truly supports growth at every level and helps every child move forward in math with confidence. And then this is our second teacher. I have seen the flow and sequence of learning targets is much more intuitive and connected. Each unit connects to the last in a meaningful and natural way, making really great use of real-world applications to help students buy into what they are learning. For teachers, there are many more practice problems provided with varying levels of difficulty for students who need more support or more of a challenge. For students, the problems build naturally in difficulty as they apply prior knowledge into the lessons. iReady allows students to work on new learning at a basic level and then gradually builds in difficulty and spirals the curriculum by adding new prior knowledge. Those were just some of the key takeaways from the two teachers that piloted actual units, and then a couple of the quotes were from teachers who were just exploring lessons on their own. So, based on our experience with this review process, we are recommending iReady for grades 6 through 8. And while that was like a 5-minute, I mean, this took all year. We were doing this in September, really tried to be thoughtful that we weren't just, sometimes it's nice to have things, but I didn't want those as a priority. Like, what are our non-negotiables? What do we know that impacts math proficiency? What do we know about teaching and learning? What does research say about best practice? Keeping those at the forefront of what we were listening to and what we were experiencing. And we just had some great conversations with the teachers, and they are really excited about this potential.
Shannon, can I just, how many people were in your group? Was it like all the six?
All the 6th,
teachers?
7th, and 8th grade.
All 6th, 7th, 8th grade teachers.
It's the 2 math coaches as well as the instructional coach at the middle school.
All right, I have a few questions. So the first is, what other districts are using this program?
Yes, so they went out and observed iReady in
And
Concord.
yeah, we observed in Concord, New Hampshire, and then in Brunswick, Maine. But there are some local school districts that are also in the process of adopting it for next school year.
York is currently using, they're moving to their middle school next year. They do elementary. The rep is working potentially with Rochester, Somersworth, and she named one other close by place that were potential for.
So is it a relatively new program in general curriculum?
14, I know. Yeah.
Cool. Do you know like the potential, recommended amount of homework per night for those grades for math?
That I do not know. That wasn't one of my.
So typically, we don't necessarily have a prescribed amount of work in any curriculum. So I think that's up to the teacher and how that class is running. I don't think that there's any, like the program doesn't specifically have homework that you're supposed to send home every night.
And then I just have one more, the MyPath tool. So how much of this program is online during their class?
It's a mix.
So we went to Observe up in Brunswick and I actually didn't go to Concord, but I did go to Brunswick. So one of the two classes we observed was actually working on that MyPath tool that day. So it's a diagnostic assessment that is used at the beginning of the new unit in order to diagnose, like, well, not diagnosis, that sounds like they're sick, but to see their prerequisite skills and to see the foundational knowledge that they have and to see where they're at with those skills that they need for that unit. So it's a diagnostic tool. It's kind of like giving a little mini NWEA before every unit. And then that tool is used to just give the teachers that data. And so then there's other opportunities for them to expand on that, and they can use that MyPath tool as a learning opportunity. So I think that in Brunswick, they use the computers once a week in the classroom, and then every other day is a face-to-face group conversation. So the day that I was in there, some of them were taking a diagnostic test, some of them were working on the MyPath, and some of them were working on an extension that was not on their computer that was also provided by the programming. So they were done everything they needed to do. So it was kind of like a day where there were 3 different groups of students doing 3 different things. And I'd say 75% of the class was on their computer and the other 25% was not.
And I asked our teachers who piloted the unit, because that was one of my concerns too, but there still is direct instruction where there's no computer, and they do a lot of that discourse, and I forget the, try it, think pair shares, and a lot of mathematical discourse, and they have a lot of protocols and routines where students are sharing their thinking. So it's not, you know.
It's definitely not an online.
Like Duolingo, little map going down, yeah. Okay.
There is a great Duolingo math course. I would highly recommend.
Really?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, and then I just had one more question. So like the Brunswick and Concord are seeing like success on their math scores, improvement. What are they seeing?
The Brunswick teachers were absolutely over the moon about it. They were so happy with it. I didn't go to Concord, so I'm not sure. Do you remember?
Yeah, well, I didn't go, but the report back was just how great it was for differentiation. There is a section on the website where they talk about how the MyPath directly impacts proficiency and state testing scores. And so they have a little bit of research on that.
Cool. Thank you.
And when I did present my budget back in March, like we were still in this process, but I put a placeholder with some of the programs that were in consideration. So they're very excited.
You see this meshing well with the elementary curriculum?
We do, and I'm going to let Carrie speak.
It's so funny, I kind of predicted that question actually. So we did, if you noticed on the slide, we did look for a Eureka Squared site that we could go visit for the middle school, and there's no one nearby that's using Eureka Squared in the middle school. We use Eureka Squared K-5, and most districts also use it K-5. So if you remember when we adopted Eureka many years ago, we went to visit Saco. And we also went to visit Saco when we moved to Eureka Squared. And so the transition from 5th grade math to 6th grade math has always been a change in programming. I feel like these 2 programs mesh a whole lot better than the 2 programs we're currently using. So, and the advantage of the restructuring is that transition is going to happen within the same building. So there's going to be a lot of vertical conversations. The 5th grade teachers will be able to communicate directly with the 6th grade teachers, and the 6th grade teachers will be able to communicate directly with 5th grade teachers. They don't even have to go to a different building to do that. So there's a lot of the same instructional routines. There's a lot of the same math routines and conversation starters and things like that that you would see in Eureka that you also see in iReady.
Thank you.
A lot of training for the teachers to jump into this program, or?
Yeah, they had suggested a summer training if we were to move forward, and then some maybe online coaching. That's typical.
No question.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you know how long Brunswick has been using iReady?
I think this is their third year.
Is it third year? In Concord, any idea?
Using it longer, Karen said, but I can confirm, sorry.
I'd definitely be interested in the results, right, of those districts. Just in listening, just two thoughts. One is around homework. Students definitely need practice. They need it. And so whether it's currently not the practice or not assigned, not a protocol, does iReady have homework sheets in the program that can be sent that are aligned with each lesson?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to send other things, and not just specifically designed to the lesson, but also extension type activities that would be great to send on with kiddos as well.
That's good to know that it has that. That's wonderful. The other concern that I'm wondering about is what you observed in Brunswick, where kids are in different groups, like 75% of the class is on computer and 25% is not. I'm always concerned teachers working with students, like if students are working and the teacher isn't providing direct feedback all the time, so why direct poll instruction is really good, because it's provided, the feedback is being watched every step of the way. Is the design of iReady to be for students to be doing groups for periods of the class time without teacher feedback or instruction at that time? Is that like a recommended practice?
The teacher in Brunswick, even with those kiddos that were on the computer, so the only students that he didn't touch base with were the ones that were taking that diagnostic assessment, but he touched base with all of the students that were working on their mind path, which is like their online practice to help them get to where they need to be for that lesson that they're going to be doing the next day. And he also touched base with those kiddos that were doing the enrichment activities. So it's definitely, no, it's not like a stand back and watch it happen. So.
Great. Another question is about the differentiation within the units. So students are all over the place with their strengths and weaknesses, could be just dependent on an absence of school, prolonged absence from school, right? So does differentiation does it allow, right? If you're at one level in one unit, right, or a few lessons, can you easily jump into another level in the next unit, and how does that happen?
Yeah, so the advantage is they do have that diagnostic assessment at the beginning of every unit. And so that's gonna check those kids' skills and on the particulars for that unit. So the standards that are within that unit is gonna be looked at the beginning of each unit. And so I think that if you are, you're here in one unit, you might be up here in a different unit, because maybe this is an operations and algebraic thinking, this is a geometry, you're at different places, and the differentiation is happening because you have that data. You can say, okay, these kiddos need a little bit more practice on solving equations and these kiddos don't. So I'm going to do something different with this group than I'm going to do with this group. So it does happen. But these guys said that they do that about once a week. Like I said, that's the day that they're spending the time on their computers. Yeah.
And my last question is just around the My Pathway diagnostic. My previous district did use iReady. I can tell you the online program lost its luster after about 5 months. Students started clicking, just to do it. And if they knew their instruction and their design was going to be related to the assessment, I looked at the data, kids tanked the diagnostics so that they would get easier working the teacher. So I'd just like to make sure that we are planning for that, that we are well aware that online loses its luster very quickly for many students. Some students love it and they go full scale, and that's great. But I'm also wondering about the other 2/3 or so who are not going to love it and are going to do everything to sabotage and avoid it. So as long as we're planning for that and we are well aware of that possibility.
Yeah, that's a really good thought. I think that has a lot to do with like your structures in your classroom and your community building and how you're using that online component. Because if you are in the computer all the time, then it's going to lose its luster for sure. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Move on to writing, or do we want to?
Do we vote to accept it, or what do we do?
You don't need to vote. This is, we're making the recommendation for instructional materials, so we're just providing you the information for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Carrie Wilson, one of our two
Thank you, Carrie.
math coaches.
I'll give a shout out to our math coach because she takes time out of her nights as well to teach parents how to do their kids' homework. So if you've ever attended an online math session, I made it to one. I have been negligent in the rest, but it was very helpful.
We're all on to.
Perfect.
Thanks, Audrey. Did you hear what you said? For parents to do their kids' homework.
Oh, no. I still can't do them.
Because now you can't, if you have to show me to forget it. No, we didn't do it that way. You know, so. Okay, next is a donation.
Did you lose it again?
We got writing.
We have writing.
Writing. It doesn't say it there, but there's a writing one too. I know. Teachers.
Okay. You stuck with me for a little longer.
You again.
Okay, so this is a little different. I also spoke about this in the fall. Was not a curriculum review, but we just had this opportunity arise and it was too good to pass up. I think if you were to ask most K-5 teachers across the country, what is the one content area they were really eagerly hoping for a new amazing curriculum, I think many of them would say writing. I think it's an area that has been stagnant in the same process for many years and the same curriculum. And teachers have really been feeling a need to shift. So one day this email came to me about potentially being part of an efficacy study for a new writing program for K-3. It was a company that we were already familiar with as we use some of their resources for some of our academic awareness in the younger grades. So it was just an opportunity to partake in something that I think I had an inkling that many of our K-3 teachers would jump at the chance to pilot a new program, and also to be part of the development of a new program at the ground level and possibly putting our district on the map in terms of curricular innovation and partnership with curriculum development was also an exciting idea. And in addition, everything is free. So we got free resources, free professional development. But honestly, my decision or my hope in moving forward with it in the fall was that I knew so many teachers would jump at this opportunity. So that is why we partnered with the Bridge to Writing program. We had 20 teachers across the district, K-3. It's only a K-3 curriculum right now, but there is a 4-5 in development. Participate in this pilot this year. And so as research points out, learning how to write is one of the most difficult skills for students to learn in school. And fluent writing requires mastering syntax and grammar, text structures, writing crafts, and critical thinking. So recent research in writing has also underscored that to be skilled in writing, students really need to be strong in the 5 components of writing that contribute to fluent, skilled writing, and that this program provides explicit, systematic instruction for all 5 strands of the writing rope. And if you've read recent movements about the science of reading, soon after that came the science of writing. And there is a reading rope that goes with reading, and Sedita came out with the writing rope. And what you'll see is that in previous 4 writing programs, that grammar piece of the writing rope was often overlooked. Most writing programs really just focused on the writing process, where revision and editing is part of that, but often really hard to navigate all those steps in the writing process. So Bridge to Writing is the only writing curriculum to combine grammar concepts and writing process instruction, providing a comprehensive writing solution for K-3 classrooms. So that's the why behind Bridge to Writing. So Astafio tried to help me get that louder, but the next few slides are going to be about the impact that our teachers saw in terms of their teaching and their students' learning. That was a kindergartner talking about how they learned about nouns and spacing between words and punctuation. And it's not often that you can have a kindergartner, talk about those things. So the next slide. I don't know if you can see it from far away, but the two pictures are the same students' work that show a tremendous amount of growth. One of our teachers said that this is the most comfortable I've been teaching writing in 18 years. At the end of every lesson, I truly feel that I taught my students a new skill to help make them better writers. Student, another teacher, and again, those pictures show some tremendous growth. This program is aligned so that all students, no matter their prior writing skills, can become stronger and more confident writers. Using Heggerty Bridge to Writing this year has been beneficial to my first graders because they've built a strong foundation in vocabulary, sentence structure, and confidence to become better writers each and every day. Using lessons in parts of speech and sentence structure, which we've never directly had before with any other program, has taught them how to craft thoughtful sentences, which leads to more detailed writing. A few more quotes. Students become truly invested in their writing and look forward to finishing their final drafts so they can add them to their portfolios. Students were much more engaged in their writing throughout the year. Most of all, my students have loved all the different forms of writing they've engaged in. They've created fictional stories, advertisements, poems, research projects, reviews, and so much more. They've been engaged, motivated to create their best work, and excited about sharing their final products every week. And we are fortunate to have two of the pilot teachers here tonight who I'm going to put on the spot to have them talk about their experience with the program, what they saw as impactful to their teaching, and more importantly, to their students' growth as writers. I'm going to start by saying I don't often talk to this many adults at once. I know this, I know. My name is Barbara Silvers, we teach kindergarten at Husby School. And if you, I feel like a lot of what I'm going to say is a repeat of what Sharon just said, but if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I'd like to ask you to pretend that you are a beginning of the year kindergarten student. It's writing time, and this is what your teacher says to you. Think of a true story about something that happened to you or something that you did. When you write your story, you'll need to write at least 3 sentences so that your story has a beginning, middle, and end. Make sure you include who was there with you, what happened, how it made you feel, and make sure there are lots of details. If you don't know how to spell the words, just stretch out the sounds and write what you hear. Remember to write complete sentences that have uppercase and lowercase letters used correctly, spaces between your words, and don't forget the punctuation at the end. But for you, experienced writers, imagine that you're writing it in Greek. If you don't know Greek, this task would feel like a very heavy lift. And of course, this is a slightly exaggerated version of how the program we were using started at the beginning of kindergarten. I offer this example to demonstrate the cognitive load that was being placed on our littlest learners. Many of our students have as much knowledge of the sound symbol correlation as I'm assuming you do about writing Greek. Their effort during writing time was spent not learning about writing, but trying to figure out what symbol to put on the paper for the sound they meant. Of course, throughout the year, we teach our students how to write those symbols. But at the beginning of the year, we've already set them up to struggle in their writing time by asking so much. In contrast to that curriculum, the Bridges curriculum meets our students where they are with a heavily scaffolded curriculum. Students are taught the writing process with a more gradual release of responsibility. At the beginning, they get to complete sentence stems with lots of scribing support from the teacher. They're explicitly taught the components of a complete sentence, including, as you saw, nouns, verbs, adjectives, prepositions,
They practice the writing process by getting to revise that sentence stem and adding details to their work. They learn that their writing should have an opening, a middle, and a conclusion, but that comes much later in the year. The curriculum does follow the I do, we do, you do model, and students are taught to fingerspell, again, much later in the year than we were expecting before. And support is still included for the students who are not yet secure in their sound symbol correlation. The curriculum also offers extension activities for the students who are already getting that. And while this curriculum is not perfect, really what curriculum is, I feel that I've done more this year to teach my students about writing than ever before. It's almost like we're giving them that crane to hold up the heavy lift of learning how to write, or maybe showing them how to use Google Translate for Greek. I hope they get to continue this work next year.
I'm Rebecca Sanborn, and I also teach kindergarten. Barbara and I have both been teaching kindergarten for a very long time, and writing is definitely the most difficult thing that we ask them to do. And I think that that's not just us in kindergarten, but going forward. And the thing that I liked most about this program was sort of what Barbara said about how it really scaffolds them. From the beginning, it's very developmentally appropriate. So when they come into kindergarten, they're not being expected to write a full sentence because that's not where they're at yet. And kindergarten is an amazing year because they come in with very little knowledge in some cases, and they leave being able to read, being able to write. And this program for me gave them the best chance of being able to go forward and write more challenging things in the future, because I've never had a program before that actually taught them how to write a complete sentence, which seems like a really important thing. You can't really write creatively later if you don't really know how to write a complete sentence. They learned like nouns, like Barbara was saying, nouns, verbs, adjectives. The very first month of school, they all knew punctuation, which had never happened to me before. But that was just built into the program, and they also had like some potions that they were doing. And I just have really liked doing it with my students this year. I've seen some really good growth with them. I do not have tears with writing this year, do you? And that is often something that we see in kindergarten with writing, because it is super challenging for students. So I feel like it has really scaffolded them along the way, and now they're able to write multiple sentences. They're able to revise and edit and then share their work with their peers. And I feel like Barb said, there's no perfect program for anything, but I feel like I was really able to teach them some things this year about how to be successful writers and get the message across to someone. So,
Rebecca, I want to know what the motion is.
so period. There you go. Exclamation point. And then I made my own for question mark because I was like, there has to be one. So
Thank you.
and then, we would practice, and then that's how they would sort of show us that they knew what was required for different situations. So. Sure. I will just say I have a 5-year-old who is in Barbara Childress's class, and she's incredible. And he is someone that I think we can both agree will not try something unless he knows he's going to nail it. So he tends to be a little more hesitant. He comes home and I literally have gone through reams of paper with the amount of books he writes and the amount he just wants to get things on paper. Like, he's not scared to make mistakes. He wants to try. Out of all of the subjects in school, I think he's really excelling the most with writing. And now this is lining up. Thank you.
So is this something you're recommending for us?
Yes, I'm recommending this as a pilot. It would be great to continue in all K-3 classrooms. I have more. Are you good? Okay. The rest of the slides.
The efficacy study is still underway. They're still finalizing it, but they were able to share a couple slides with me. So of the teachers who participated in the survey, so they surveyed our pilot teachers, but then our teachers who were not in the pilot, who were implementing our other writing curriculum. And the BET Bridge to Writing group How much did Bridge to Writing improve student writing? 62% of the BTW teachers reported that they saw a lot of improvement in students' writing quality, with another 31% reporting moderate. Where in contrast, our other teachers using the other curriculum, 0% reported they saw a lot of improvement, with 60% reporting they only saw a little improvement. How engaged were the students? So again, I won't read it through, but you'll see the column on the left. Students were very engaged to moderately engaged with the new curriculum, and the comparison group, there were some moderately engaged, but a few that were a little engaged and not engaged at all. And how satisfied were teachers? Again, I think those are pretty self-explanatory. Any other thoughts or concerns? And based on the success of our pilot experience, we recommend continuing the Bridge Writing Program across all classrooms next year.
So I did see Hegarty in there. That is the Hegarty as in phonemic awareness.
Yes.
Absolutely perfect.
Any questions?
I was just going to say, so this is existing K through 3 is the part they've been using this.
So 20 teachers who piloted this year have been using this program. And then I think there were like 27 other teachers, K3. The remainder used our regular writing curriculum.
I was just curious because I feel like, I don't know if my son's teacher is one of them or not. Between my third and fourth grade, I could see a lot of different writing things this year with my third grader than I saw last year with my now fourth grader.
Yeah.
May or may not be one of them, but I noticed a difference in his writing. So fingers crossed.
Any others?
So same thing, Shannon, correct? In the budget that you already
Yes, in
had.
that
Yeah.
one line item, I had put placeholders for a 6 to 8 map potential, depending on board and this writing as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go to the donation.
Okay, so we have a donation from the Charles A.S. Hatch Post 79 American Legion of Berwick for $500 for the backpack program, and we do need a motion just based on the amount of this donation. So a motion, a second, and a vote.
Make a motion to accept the donation.
Second over here.
Got it?
Huge thanks.
All those in favor? Thanks.
Okay, so now we're going into the ratification of the support staff agreement, and then we're going into the teachers agreement as well. We started this discussion, not the 8th, but before that, the meeting before that, with the support staff contract, and we have some additional information, and we're looking for approval this evening for both of these.
Right. So we had some conversation, and I did share with the folks that were on the committee, Mr. Tabor and Ms. Newbert, about the specificity of the language around the $1,000 stipend for those teachers, those ed techs that are working in self-contained classrooms. And so the language is that, so what was asked was, can we be more specific about, so we were very specific. So ed technicians who work in the following self-contained classroom settings: Vivian Huzzy Behavioral Program, Vivian Huzzy Functional Life Skills Program, Hanson School Behavioral Program, Hanson School Functional Life Skill Program, Knowlton Behavioral Program, Knowlton Functional Life Skills Program, grades 5 and 6 behavioral program, grades 5 and 6 functional life skill program, grades 7 to 12 behavioral programs, and grades 7 to 13 postgrad, because the functional life skills folks tend to have postgrads in their programming. Within the special education programs will receive a prorated bonus of $1,000 per semester, net any applicable required withholding via the district's normal payroll practices based on the number of days the employee filled that role through completion of the semester. So then we also added a list of employees receiving the bonus will be provided to the union at the start of the school year by October 1st. The district will evaluate the need for self-contained programs each year, which it has to, and should the need change, an addendum to this contract will be made accordingly. I met with Rick as well to make sure that
he was ill and he was unable to be here tonight. Something came up for him. He was planning on being here originally. One of the questions that Mr. Tabor asked of it was like, what does this actually translate to financially? And it is approximately, so I think I shared my email. Make sure the right stuff. So we have approximately 105 ed techs in the district. When I say the reality is like it ebbs and flows based on the year. Approximately 72 of those are in the special ed department. And of those, there are about 40 that are in self-contained programs. So that turns into basically an $80,000 a year earmark for those folks who finish both semesters and do that. And the reason we did this, just to give people a background, is these are hard to fill positions, and we provided the honorarium to allow people to say yes to these positions, and we've been able to reduce the turnover significantly. So other districts do it differently. They might do an hourly increase, like $1 to $2 an hour. We just felt like it was more, I guess, honoring is how I put it, of our staff, and encouraged retention to put that $1,000 per semester. Also, these programs, and the reason why we put the money where we do, is these programs provide in-district instruction to the most impacted students in our district. Our staff members in these programs provide the instruction effectively within the child's community and allow our students to stay in our schools, saving us the out-of-district placements. This investment in our staff, it just makes sense to us, and it's been ongoing. We've been doing it for quite a while, but what was asked of us in the meeting when we were talking about the contract was just, can we put this in to solidify it for the future, which is what we agreed to and did. So I just wanted to be sure that everybody had that information, and that kind of like where it's at.
So all of these people have already been getting these stipends. It is just now being written into contracts.
And one of the things about it that is, so it's a plus and minus, right, to put it in the contracts, because it's an ongoing forever, but it really is what we do in order to maintain as many of our support staff as possible. Particularly in those positions, can be very difficult, can be really hard to fill, and they're not easy jobs. So there's extra people. So there's that. What I will also share with you, because we really need to deal with the contracts tonight. So I'm going to share another request that was made, which is, and Denise, I'm going to pull you out to the table. Okay, I just want to make sure that when we're explaining things, it's clear. Mr. Tabor asked us to have basically kind of a spreadsheet that shows around. Do you need a copy of this? You got it with you? Okay. That basically just kind of looks at the contracts overall and talks about the actuals and the percent increases that come with the increases of salaries and benefits as we work at the contracts. So what I'd like you to look at is the second set at the bottom, which is the support staff piece. And so what we did was we took it a little bit further than I think what Josh had asked us for, but this is 23-24 was the actual salaries that were spent, the longevity, the stipends, the totals, the benefits, the whole 9 yards. And then we moved to this current year, where this is the actuals for this current year, including the encumbered funds that we've put through. So as you read through it, it's actually $395,000 less in salary this year. That's based on unfilled positions, basically, more than anything. And then the longevity piece, the stipends, is the actual ones for our folks in self-contained classrooms. There's not a lot of other stipends for our ed techs, so that's what that is. And then the wage totals, the benefits, and the grand totals. So and then what needs to be looked at, these are really difficult to be able to actually give true figures projecting forward because these are hourly staff. And they get paid by what they actually work. It's not a salary. Like our teachers is a little easier to sort of put out there. But so we did the best we could and spent a significant amount of time on it. And so this is what our expectation will look like for 25-26. So the actual overall grand total increase is like 1.54%. And then the true projection is the 26-27, because that's just like, who knows? I mean, we're looking at it as like it's going to go forward similarly, but not really 100%. But that I think gives you a good, at least idea of what we're looking for. Is that what you were looking for, Josh?
Yes, first, I thank you for providing these numbers. The 25-26 represents the differences in staff regarding the restructuring.
It does. It does include that right now because we've already put that information into our budgeting process. So I wasn't going to make staff go back and look at things from a different perspective. But it definitely impact that, as you can see.
Just in that, the benefits on that particular year, 25-26, any explanation on that? I mean,
Yes, you want to
2%, like we're expecting a 22% increase?
So, we have approximately $30,000 contributed to the paid family medical leave tax that we now pay.
That's considered a benefit, so that gets put in there.
That's considered. So benefits is taxes and benefits. It's all in that same group. We also had, based on actual usage, so when we budget medical expense and dental expense, we say, Denise Van Campen, you have a family plan. We anticipate you're going to have a family plan next year. That's how we budget. We don't say, well, Denise doesn't take any medical. We're going to give her a little bit just in case. We just budget for who currently takes it and what we anticipate the increase to be. The increase for this group was approximately $160,000 more than what we anticipate fiscal 25 ending at. Part of that is the medical increase. I would say part of that is we budgeted in 25-26 for all of the positions we had. If we had unfilled positions in 25, they weren't using a medical benefit. But now if they're still in the budget, we're going to assume that they will take medical. So that's the one variance there. But those two together are approximately 190,000. The other benefits are largely based on increases in salary. So when you earn more, you pay more in FICA taxes, you pay more in workers' comp, those things. So that's roughly that increase raises for that.
Thank you.
We'll go back to it for like teacher when we get to this teacher contract, but I would respectfully like to call for a vote for the support staff to be able to make some decisions about their worlds going forward.
Anybody have any more? Made the motion?
Yes.
And Warren second. Okay. Any more discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor of the support staff schedule as presented? Second. Opposed?
Thank you. I will let the support staff team know.
All right, so we have the teachers agreement, the teachers association agreement as well. So we received a copy of the draft agreement via email. We also have the document that Sue just shared, similarly scheduled for the teachers. If you want to take a look at that, we can.
I'm gonna I know that, unfortunately Kate's not here tonight, but Lauren was with our team and, I think that I guess I would like to point out, there's two things. Actually, just one thing, really. Stipends are not absolutely, done. So Brenna's in the audience tonight. We are working with the association to, reduce the number of stipends that are in the contract as written. And also just clarify some things. There are the sports, the coaching positions and some curricular positions are really a straight 1.5% increase. That's what we've always done and that's what we will do. Then there are a host of them that are strictly just a lump sum, and those are in there as well. But the association, we've been sort of talking about how to clarify these, trim it down to be more appropriate, because some of this shouldn't really be necessarily on a stipend end of it. So we're working through that right now together. And we've also put a note to the entire folks that are voting on their contracts that this is really not the actual for the stipend piece, and please be voting on the contract language and not the stipend, whatever. Does that make sense, Brenna?
And one of the other just the methodology for stipends for teachers, with the self-contained stipend, for support staff. That is them doing their job, but they're based on what they're doing, they're getting something extra if they're showing up. It's similar to a perfect attendance might be for some, for the students group. We didn't find any stipends that weren't added responsibility, if you call it that. You're coaching a team, you're joining a district, subcommittee, you're going above and beyond. So I left these stipend lines for things that were awarded to staff upon completion of their regular day job. That's kind of how my methodology. So that's why the teachers show no stipends. It's not because there aren't any, it's just because I had a tough time reconciling the different reasons for them, I guess.
Do you want to talk through anything? Question?
Yeah, I guess questions.
Just, again, the restructuring obviously has a big impact on that 25, 26 year. So it's hard to look at that. So I'm actually looking at more the 26, 27 because, the 2-year contract that we're looking at. I think correct me if I'm wrong, the increases are very similar in both years to the contract language. And if that's inaccurate, please. So when I look at the 26, 27, the overall increase is 6.17%, or in dollars, it's like it's nearly 1.5 million to this contract. In being in the budget cycle that we're in, we know that approximately, and this is an estimate, approximately $500,000 in an increased school budget is about a 6% impact on our local tax. So that 26, 27 school year, which that's what it is, nearly 1.5 million. That represents a nearly 18% increase in local tax. And that's just, that's hard. I know we cut a lot of positions or eliminated open positions and all that, but 30 some odd positions. And that brought it down now. Like, how are we going to reduce that? Anticipate just in this contract that anticipated approximately 18% the local tax base.
I guess my first question would be, or statement would be, that those numbers need to be vetted, and that we've learned that what is quickly calculated in these meetings often is not accurate. So before those numbers get spread, I definitely think they need to be vetted. I think the biggest thing is looking at that longevity increase in 26, 27 truly speaks as from what I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, truly speaks to the work that we did 2 years ago with this contract to get our teachers to wages that are competitive among our county to keep them here. And this work also does that too. And we're expecting all of these teachers now to stay, and teachers that are here longer are better for everyone, consistency. So I think that these numbers really match what we need to do to keep our teachers at competitive rates that are still anywhere near the highest in the county. Yeah, that'd be my comment.
But also that will affect that
Microphone,
is,
So push a button.
Nancy. There you go.
will also affect that if we have decreasing class sizes again. We will not have as many teachers theoretically, correct?
Correct.
So I'm not convinced that that's gonna be 6.7% times 3.
Denise, maybe you can help out a little bit. If my numbers are way off, is a 1.5% or $1.5 million increase in what it says here in this 26-27 school year. Am I off base in saying that's, we know that our increase is 500,000 and the impact across 3 towns, again, just approximately is around 6%. Is it incorrect to say that a $1.5 million increase is around 18% in local tax base? Because we're already above the EPS formula. We're beyond that. So it's not gonna be a state impact, it's all local.
So I would say, just because I'm remembering it now, beyond EPS is every school district in Maine.
Yep.
Because the state doesn't necessarily provide adequate funding.
Yep.
But what I would say to the 500,000, the 500,000 was on expenses. And we went up 1.15% in expenses. The other recapture we had to do was the hole created by the fund balance use. So I don't know that the 1.5% increase will translate into a 6, 7, 8, 15, 18% increase. A lot of this is big assumptions too, I would say, for fiscal 27. For example, I put in a 10% increase to benefits. We don't know, right? We're not even close to knowing. So, when we look at that, that adds approximately 1.9% to that bottom line as well, just for those benefit increases. So I would say, if we knew for certain what things were, we could probably say that, but I think, the 500,000 translating to a 6 or 7% increase is the wrong place on that revenue sheet. It needs to be up in the 1.15% increase to expenses.
In 1.1% of a $50 million budget is.
I think it was about, I don't have that budget. document.
I mean, mathematically, 1% of $50 million is $500,000.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's 1%, right?
So, yes.
Okay, so $500,000. I mean, if 1% increases in our expenses, which the salaries, benefits are expenses, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if a 1% increase in our expenses is impacting towns at about, different towns, different levels, 6%, then a $1.5 million increase in expenses would equate to about an 18% increase, no?
No.
Okay, so help me understand why that's not mathematically correct.
You're putting me through my paces.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking it's just a numbers thing, so I need to help and understand why it's not working.
So you're, again, at the top of that revenue sheet in your budget book, we increased expenses approximately 500,000, which again would be 1/3 of that, right? 1.5 million in increased expenses means 500,000 translated into a 1.15%.
Yeah.
So assuming nothing, assuming we stay the same, a 1.5 million, wouldn't that be more like 3.5? Or you can,
4.5.
Yeah.
or excuse me, you're right, 4.5, because you're saying each $500,000 is 1.15%. So if you have 1.5 million.
Actually, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that's two expenses, right? That's two expenses.
So that's.
So then how does that impact local tax base is what I'm saying. If a 1% this year, in our current budget now, if a 1.15% increase affects our local tax base by 6%,
So the
Revenue
the
streams will be
difference
better.
is the revenue.
right?
That's the difference.
Okay, all right. The revenue plays into
Fund
that.
balance, we are going down by 2.2 million in fund, or 2.1 million in fund balance. And that's why our 1.15 didn't translate to that to the taxpayers because of that loss of revenue. So if we were to lose state revenue, for example, it would mean your, 4.5% or whatever is, going to be bigger because there's a revenue loss, but the revenue totally changes that bottom line.
I know the Harriman study talked about, it's about 30 students a year is decline enrollment. Like, it's not going to be that number. We know, right? It's going to fluctuate a little bit, but they anticipate about 30 students per year, which equates to, it's somewhere around $300,000 to $400,000 in loss from state revenue, from what I could tell in our budget books. It's somewhere around there. I'm not quoting the number, but it's in that ballpark. So we expect state revenue to come down. And then, oh, sorry.
So I'm just, with declining enrollment,
Yep.
we would have to readjust. We would have to look at our, what we're doing for programming and make adjustments based on that. So like, I do hear what you're saying. I just think the reality of it is that we can be a lot clearer about the upcoming budget, but projecting out is, it's a little dangerous to put the words out that like we're going to an 18% increase when we really don't know that as we're looking, we have to look at those revenue streams. We need to look at what the work. So the work is here at the board level and with the administrative team to say, okay, if this is really going to happen, then this is what we need to do in order to adjust for that. So I would say that is the work of this group of people. So, but not to be saying, oh, well, if we give these people this money, then therefore we are, immediately taxing our citizens another 18%. I think that's unfair, to be honest with you.
And I just, I think we need to look long distance. It's not to say that that's what's going to happen, but it's an awareness. Like last year, we were using the fund balance. I'm not in favor of using undesignated funds for annual expenses. That's not a good practice, right? And especially when we have $2.4 million worth of CI capital improvement projects that have been on the books for a while, right? We got some windows that need to be done at the middle school, windows that need to be done at Vivian Hudson. I mean, we have significant expenses there that a undesignated fund balance would be really helpful to take care of those large expense projects. So like when I knew we weren't going to use the fund balance, I knew that this year's budget was going to be very, very high. And I predicted that last year. I said it was, and it was true. And then we went through a whole lot to bring it back down. So like, I anticipate that we're going to have another really high percentage next year because this is just the teacher's contract. It does not include the support staff contract that was just ratified, does not include the obligation to the administrative contract that, like, we're talking in excess of 18% by a decent margin there when we look at that. And I understand revenues, we can mince it every which way that we want, but I mean, if we're not going to use fund balance, which again, I'm not in favor of, maybe the board will think differently and want to use it. I don't see how we're avoiding that. And Lauren, I hear you in saying want to compete with other districts. I'm not interested in chasing every other district. I'm interested in how do we do the best that we can offer, the greatest culture that we can offer in a respectful way. Everyone knows I work in Somersworth. I make far less than Noble. And I am happy to work there. It's not about the money all the time. It's not always about the money. And so I just think that there's a middle ground in here. And I just think that this contract is extremely high.
You have a higher cost per student. So I just want to say I totally understand the looking ahead, and that's something I want to focus on too for next year's budget in particular. But we have to also come to reality, and our teachers are not making wages that are like something to boast about. Like they're not making amounts that are, I think they're they're comfortable and I feel like we take care of our teachers, but I don't think that it's anything to like say, oh my God, they're getting paid egregious amounts. So I think it's our job as board members to be going to our town's budget meetings and to be making sure that they're prioritizing this budget when we talk about the overall. So schools should be getting a massive portion of town. They are, and it should be more. And we need to be the voice of that. And when we have towns that are sitting on lots of funds that could be going to some other things, I think that we need to really be active as a board with that.
Honestly, again, I don't think it's an 18%. So we can check those.
The last thing that I'll just mention, and then I will be done. I was just looking at the salary schedules on there. I just wondered if maybe the negotiating team could speak to the variance of numbers, of increases from year to year, from 25 to 26. I just did some quick estimates, and it says low as 2,800 to as high as 5,200. And if you go just by step, you know, I'm just going to read off like 5 in a row here on the master schedule. So I'm going to start at step 11 and just read down. $3,700 increase from the year before as they go to the next year. And then after that, it's a $3,500, then a $4,100 increase, then a $3,600 increase, then a $4,900 increase, then a $4,400 increase, then a $5,800 increase. Like, it's all over the place. And I'm just wondering if the negotiating team had looked at that, if that's purposeful and what the reason is for all that variance. And it exists in the bachelor's end too.
I'm not sure exactly which set of numbers you're looking at because I see different ones, but yeah, that really goes to the board being very specific about the percentage of increase they felt comfortable giving to our teachers. And we looked at it many different ways. Many of us on the committee manipulated the numbers. The Stewart report jumped in. The teachers did their own version. We all worked together and basically came up with what was agreed upon by all and what was the greatest benefit.
And kept to the percent increase that the board gave us.
It's just, if we're doing it by percentages, I mean, naturally, as you go down the schedule, they would all be increasing because the base number is increasing, right? But that's not the case. So I'm just wondering, like, that just seems. So what I'm talking about for specificity, right? If you look at step 11 on the masters in the 26-27, it's 67,575. Can you circle that number? Or look at that number on step 11 of 26-27. And if you go to the year before step 10 in the same masters category, it's 63,950, right? So that increase is almost $3,700. It's right in that range. But then if you look at another one, and I'll just circle another one here, step 14 of 26-27, and then you look at step 13 of 25-26, just quick estimate is about a $4,100 increase. And it's just different, right? It's just different. It's not based on percentages straight across the board. So I understand that in doing this, there are a lot of hands in it, a lot of changes. It just doesn't seem like it was consistent throughout, not a consistent number, not a consistent percentage. So I was just wondering what the rationale was. And it sounds like it was done.
It was done with a lot of thought. Yeah, hours and hours and hours. I would not discount that work for one single second for the blood, sweat, and tears poured into it by many.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve the teacher's contract.
A second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, opposed?
Okay, thank you. Brenna, we have a contract.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to employment.
We have a few employment updates. We have 2 pre-K teachers that we're nominating this evening. The first one is Lisa Dinsmore, who's currently at our library ed tech at Hussey School. And she's being nominated for one of the positions in Lebanon at Hanson School. So we need a motion for that. She's been in our district about 10 years.
What
So
did she teach? Second?
currently
She's
she's a
sitting back
library.
there.
Yeah, she's sitting back there. So, yep. So Peg made the motion. Alva seconded.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Unanimous.
And the next one is Angela Boston. Angela has been a pre-K teacher for about 17 years. She worked in Head Start. She's currently in Wakefield, New Hampshire. She is a Lebanon resident, and we're nominating her again for the Lebanon program at Hanson School.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Everybody, thank you. Right, thank you. We have a resignation of Emily Courier, who's a social worker in Lebanon, and that's effective not at the end of the year. It's effective immediately. There have been some unforeseen circumstances, so we're looking for that.
Motion to accept.
Okay, all those in favor?
Okay, and then we have Samantha Magul, who's a second grade teacher at Hanson School, and she is putting in her resignation for the end of the school year for another position. So.
Motion to accept. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Thank you. And then every once in a while, we get this.
Oh, yeah.
So Tammy McCormick has been at North Berwick Elementary School for 42 years. And she has submitted her retirement as of this June. Longtime PE teacher in the district. So we
I'm
are bringing
thinking
this.
she is the longest standing teacher in the district right now.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's fabulous.
I'll approve it and just thank Mrs. McCormick for being my PE teacher when I was at North Berwick Primary School. So, right? So she was great then. I remember specifically when we had jump on the radio, on the intercom system. And we used to do the ski jumps left and right, and Miss McCormick would be going at it, and we'd all be inspired by her getting into it. So thank you, Mrs. McCormick, for all those memories and the great work.
I'll second, and thank you.
Yeah, we got it. Okay, we have a vote?
Yep.
What's that? Who made the motion?
I did.
Oh, you made it,
Josh
you seconded.
and
Okay, all right, all those in favor, with regrets.
And
Yeah. You. Is that it?
that's it for employment.
Okay, superintendent update.
A few superintendent updates. We have Special Olympics coming up tomorrow. It was tentatively scheduled for last Friday, but that was canceled due to the weather. And we're hoping to sneak it in. Everything looks kind of good for tomorrow, fingers crossed. So it's a really exciting day. We look forward to it and plan for it all year. So looking forward to that. We also wanted to give a recognition to Erin Dolly, who is currently the Lebanon and Hanson Elementary School music and choir teacher. She was selected as the main music educator of the year. So just a big shout out to Erin for that. Congratulations. And then I wanted to just check in on a few dates coming up just to get these on the book so we can work through some of this. So we have a meeting June 5th, which is our regular meeting. We have a meeting June 12th, which we typically don't have, but because the budget vote is on the 10th, we need to sign documentation. So that would be,
Just a quick one,
it's
right.
just a quick signing of the, okay.
Okay.
And then we have June 19th. My question is,
19.
June 19th is
know,
the
June
third, it would be the third. Yeah, it's also a holiday.
It's a holiday.
So do we,
But do we need that though?
that was gonna be my question.
Oh.
If it's a holiday,
Because we usually wouldn't have that.
Right,
That would be the
right.
third. I mean, no, that's the fourth.
so do we just want to keep June 5th and then June 12th to sign the documents? And that's it for June?
I
Does
would
that make
say.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
Unless I don't finish
And the
third.
documents be signed a little bit later. I won't be in town. I'm at home.
okay.
What?
You're on the 12th. And you figure out how to sign the documents. It's like, what? What do you mean you're not gonna be
That's
here?
fine.
Okay. All right, so we'll stick with June 5th and June 12th. So then the next question is, typically it's July that we look at for the board workshop with the Drummond and Woodsum. So does July 17th sound doable?
Sorry. My life is programmed into my phone. Hold on.
And typically we do start that a little earlier than like a 7 o'clock. Sometimes we've started it at 4.
Depends on when people can.
Right.
I don't have my calendar on me, but it should be okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Would that be our only meeting in July?
It could be.
Yeah.
We
try to do
typically try to do
one in
one in
July,
July,
one
one
in
in
August.
August.
It's typically how we give everybody a little break.
My preference would be if we needed to do more meetings, like to not just have the first one 17th, what if we did the 10th? And then it puts us in a position, if we have to have more meetings, it allows that opportunity in July. Is there a reason why we can't do the 10th? Or maybe, I don't know if people are traveling. All right, Lauren, you can't. Okay. Okay, then I guess the 17th it is.
I mean, if it's better,
Okay,
just one person.
Just look at it.
the 17th. Okay, so
I would just also add that the seventeenth, that meeting is Drummond Woodsum. I think we were also planning to do some business managery budget training information. My audit is that week of the 10th, like that week of the 7th or 8th, whenever that started. So
We did.
Good information.
Why were we talking about this? I was trying to remember.
so the 17th.
Yeah, you're off. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the next one.
is that the seat, that's the seating of the new board?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the name of the book. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you don't need to write that down. huh?
Yeah.
And then August 7th or the 21st. We typically, again, have one in August, one in July. So to Josh's point, we could schedule the August 7th
And then see if we
and
need
then
to
see if we
do
want to do
Yeah, that'd be
it one. Okay. So the other one would be the 21st.
And lots of August on vacation that week.
They're both on the
So-
calendar.
And then we start.
21st of August.
Yes, and then we'd start September 4th with the regular first and third. Okay. And then we have another document just to hand out. This, again, goes to, the RIF. I know there's been some inquiries about how we got to $2.2 million for the reconfiguration. And this document talks a little bit about that. We've presented it a few different ways. Again, we can't necessarily, when the budget goes through, when the budget passes on June 10th, then at that board meeting, we do need to make a formal action on those staffs that were ripped. So this, just to explain this document, it goes by school. And so the first school is Huzzy School. And there was no impact at Huzzy School. There was no reconfiguration necessary at Huzzy School. Then we have North Berwick. And so how you would read this is teachers, counselors, interventionists, and it says 2. That's how many of staff in that category are down because of the reduction in force. Then at tech 0.6, administrative 0.5, and then stipends. And so that's how you follow it all the way down. So you'll see each school and you'll see some of those pieces there. What I want to say, and it goes on the back as well. Although there's nothing to reflect on the back, but we just hit every category when we created this document. Overall, just as you're looking at this, I would just like to say, out of all of these noted staff members, there are really 4 current staff members that are impacted by the RIF, meaning that they do not currently function in the district. So again, out of all of these positions, I know that's been a concern and a question from our board as well. How many staff are impacted because they don't have a position? But because we had unfilled positions, because we've had retirements, we've been able to really offer those teachers and staff other positions so that they remain employed in the district, except for 4 of them. So.
Does that answer your question? I want to, like, we definitely want to try to, aside from providing names, I guess that's the question.
And I wouldn't expect names, obviously. Yeah, no, the question was like, of the positions that we know that we had listed out, how many were unfilled that we eliminated? You know, like, How many of those, which one, like, those per building? I know that that was it.
Yep.
How many were due to retirement? Okay, okay.
So 6 were due to retirements, 6 were unfilled.
6 were due to retirements, I'm sorry, and how many were unfilled?
6 were unfilled.
This year.
And then there are, obviously more people than that, but then there were positions that people have.
Right, because this was eliminated, but they had the certification and could be moved into a different position, and I understand.
So results in just 4.
Some of those I'm assuming are pre-K. I mean, tonight is an example, right? Okay.
Some of the educational technicians that were RIFed are going to be going into pre-K.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
I have one thing for other.
Other?
Did we finalize a spot for the Lebanon Town Hall?
The town hall?
Yes.
The meeting?
The meeting, the town
No,
hall?
not yet.
No, they haven't.
We've contacted them 3 different times. So, yeah.
Bummer. Okay, but we're still moving forward in Berwick at the
We met.
library.
We were at the library this week.
Right, yeah.
And next week we are in North Berwick.
Cool, thank you.
Any other items? You say that. Okay. Do we have anyone for public input at this time? All right, then, we're going to move to number 15.
I'll make a motion.
I mean, nice.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session for one MRSA 4056A evaluation of officials/appointees/employees.
A second.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you for calling.
Can you